and gentlemen, warm welcome at the Sociëteit Vastgoed International webcast. My name is Ron van Bloois. I'm business partner at Sociëteit Vastgoed, and I'm also chairing the Sociëteit Vastgoed International. I'm really delighted to welcome you at this webinar, where we will do a deep dive in international markets and opportunities. We have an excellent panel today, where we will discuss Dubai, Spain, but also the beautiful islands of Aruba. Let me first introduce the speakers of today, because we have Bianca van Berg from AP Global on board. The second one is Constantijn van Haeften from Verhoon Investments. Third one is Jan-Willem Visser from the FCD Dubai. Last but not least, all the way from the Caribbean and the Aruba island in particular, warm welcome to Wijnen from the Palm Area Management. For this webinar, we have a simple structure, because I've asked the panelists to give a brief introduction, let's say a 10-minute introduction in their geography. Then we will have a Q&A. And after the exchange of geographies, we will have a bigger Q&A afterwards. And if you're listening this on demand, the Q&A will be in the final stage of this webinar. But let's start with the United Kingdom. Bianca, I would say all the way from Singapore, but today you're from Hong Kong. You're really a globetrotter. So warm welcome to you. Maybe a first starting question, like AP Global. Give me a one-liner about your company profile, please.
Yeah, thanks first of all for having me here. I feel very privileged to speak to everyone about the UK property market. So I work with API Global, and API Global is a real estate investment company. And we really, well, ultimately we're a research company, but we really see ourselves as wealth managers within the real estate industry.
Excellent. Well, it will be a deep dive in terms of investment opportunities, outlook, but also I think, let's say, the risk-return profile of a country. So please share your screen, and to kick off with a 10 minutes introductory on the UK property markets, and then I will ask some difficult questions afterwards.
Of course, thanks so much. And I've been working in UK real estate for over 20 years. The first 10 years of my career, I was based in London. And the last 10 years, I've been focused on asset management and really working with the international investors. But why UK? I think that's really why we're here. So the UK market is a very established market. And for over 30 years, the UK has been the country of choice for international investors. Now, why is that? First of all, it is considered one of the safest asset classes in the world. So for over 50 years, there's been a huge housing deficit in the UK. And what that means is that there's a really significant supply and demand imbalance. And with any investment, of course, if there's a shortage on supply, that will typically push pricing up. And that's what we've seen over the last 50 years. So there's not enough properties being built to really accommodate the population growth. Now, for an investor, that is, of course, very, very attractive, because what we want to see when we're investing in any kind of asset class, we want to see that supply and demand imbalance. And as a business, that is something that we very much focus on. Now, the UK also has a very mature legal system, specifically when it comes to title ownership. You're very much protected, which is, again, as an international investor, investing across the globe comes with risks. It is quite intimidating, but having the assurance that your asset is safe and that there is an option to remove as much risk as possible, again, that is what we want to see as an international investor. Now, there's qualified data that goes back over 30 years, and that's, of course, very important. You need to do your research. You need to understand the different external factors when it comes down to investing. And I think something that's very underrated is the language part as well. Most people, especially when investing overseas, it makes it so much easier if you understand the language, that you're not relying on third parties when it comes down to contract signing. Understanding what you're signing up for is very, very important. Now, what we've seen in recent years is how how the market has shifted from people wanting to come onto that property ladder as early as possible to what we now call generation rent. So when I lived in London, which is now 10, 15 years ago, um, everyone wanted to buy a property, but it was very difficult to buy your first property because prices have gone up so much compared to income, that it was very hard to get onto that property ladder, to buy your own property. And it was a little bit shameful, actually, being in your 30s, being very well educated, having a decent income, but not being able to own your own home. Now, that has completely shifted, especially in London, but also in your second tier cities. Um, the local population, they don't need to buy properties as quickly anymore. They're quite happy to rent. They can afford to rent a property in the area that they want to live in, whereas they cannot afford to buy. And what we're seeing now is that the people in the UK often only really start buying their properties when they settle down, when they start their families, and they need to be in a specific catchment area to get their children into a specific school. So renting, the first time, the age of a first time buyer these days in London is 41 years old. So that gives you a massive pool of tenants that want to rent your property. Outside of London, I think it's about 34, 35 years old. And that's very important when it comes down to wanting to become a landlord in the UK. Now, and as a business, we very much focus on the off-plan markets. And that gives you a sense of security. You're also securing properties at a value now, even though the property doesn't complete until 2 years from now, and really sort of banking on that growth without putting all of your cash down, and that maximizes your return on investment. So that comes with some benefits as well. But then in addition to that, the tax structures in the UK are very accessible now, and it's become much more popular to really think about your tax structure before you actually commit to investing. And believe it or not, the UK is very, very tax friendly when it comes down to foreigners, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. So then Ron also asked me to talk about the geopolitical benefits. I mentioned before, the UK, specifically London, is still considered a safe haven for internationals. There's a lot of international family offices that are based in the UK. The UK still is considered as a global financial hub. Most of the banks have their head offices in the UK. There's multiple universities, the top universities globally are based in the UK. That means that talent stays within the country as well. That then puts more pressure on the rental market and also on the property markets in general. We've talked about the legal system, huge benefit when it comes down to the UK. And overall, it just remains a very attractive international capital. Um, Now it's probably a little bit more neutral as well since the UK has stepped out of the EU. It can be a benefit. It can also be a threat. It depends, I guess, where you're coming from, where globally you're based, whether you're in the UK, the US, or in Europe. And I guess a lot of these benefits and threats, it's all relative, right? So there are still some aftershocks from Brexit. There is still some political instability. We've had lots of hoo-ha when it comes down to politics in the UK. However, it has not really affected the housing market. There's been some changes in legislation, especially when it comes down to foreign ownership, but none of these have impacted the value of properties. And the UK has been resilient through Brexit, through COVID, even during the global crisis in 2008. Within 18 months, the UK real estate market bounced back, which is very, very quick. There's always a currency risk, but again, it depends where you're investing from. The pound is not as unstable as maybe people think. It's still a very, very strong currency. So although I've listed them as threats, I don't see them as threats. The UK market has been a very, very stable market. And for 20 years that I've worked in UK real estate, I've actually never met anyone who's lost money. Um, Now, the fundamentals of identifying a good investment property, this is really where our business comes into place. And we apply the same fundamentals regardless of which location we're looking at. Now, our core market is the UK. We have entered into the Dubai markets, Bali and Thailand. However, we do apply the same fundamentals over and over and over again. And if you apply these fundamentals, doesn't matter where it is, you should be able to make good decisions. I've mentioned it twice, supply and demand imbalances. Very, very important to see that growth in property. And this is where your research comes into play. So we would want you to look at population growth. We want you to look at company migration. Where are the businesses moving to? What is your student retention rate? What impacts your population growth? And how many properties are being delivered in the next 2, 5, 10 years' time? We look at infrastructure. Are there new metro lines opening up? Are there new train lines opening up? Even, is there a new airport opening up? These are all things that will impact your growth of your assets. Private investment as well. So do your research is essentially really important. We really want to look at areas where we see the growth. We really want to be in a specific area in the first 20% of a regeneration scheme, for example. This is where you see your biggest growth overall. Then also the UK, in my opinion, why it's been so attractive for international investment is the power of leverage. The UK property market is one of the few asset classes globally where you get your return not just on capital invested, but on the value of your asset. In the UK, we can typically borrow 75% of a property value. Now, what does that look like? If you're buying a £300,000 property and you buy that in cash and your property increases in value £50,000, that means you have a return on investment of just over 16%. Now, look at that same property, but only put in £100,000. The other 200K you get from the bank. And that property increases in value by £50,000. That gives you a return of investment of 50%. Now, this is so, so valuable, trying to squeeze the best out of your investment as possible. So the power of leverage is what we always try and advise on. Borrow as much money from the bank as you can. Even though interest rates are higher, you want your property to be cash flow positive. As long as the rental income covers all of your expenses, you've got a bit of a buffer each month, then you typically have a good investment property in your hands. Then tax structures. It's been more and more popular in recent years to invest in UK real estate through a corporate structure, especially when investment comes out of the UK. We typically do that through SPVs or through limited companies because it does come with a lot of benefits. Now, I'm not going to bore you too much with the taxes, but as in most countries, you pay taxes on acquisition, taxes during ownership, taxes on disposal, and tax upon demise. So when we die. Now, what does that look like? On acquisition, you pay stamp duty land tax. Stamp duty land tax is the same for everyone in the UK as well as international investors. There is a 5% surcharge if you already own a property anywhere in the world. And then for foreign investors, there's another 2%. Now, this is based on residency, not on passport. Now, that's actually still quite attractive. For example, I live in Singapore, and although I live in Singapore and I pay taxes in Singapore, if I were to buy a property there, my additional stamp duty land tax as a non-Singaporean passport holder is 65%. So this 2% is nothing, if you ask me. And then during ownership, if you buy this in your personal name, as a European passport holder, your first £12,500 roughly is your nil band. We don't pay any taxes on that. Then everything up to £50,000 is taxed at 20%, which again, is my understanding, is a lot more attractive than the Dutch income tax. Anything over 50K, you pay 40% or even 45%. However, anyone who might move to the UK with a job, taking a salary, or building a significant portfolio, we would always recommend to buy this through a corporate structure because no one wants to be paying 40 or 45% income tax on their rental income. Okay. So corporation tax, a lot more attractive. The maximum rate is 25%, but also as a business, you have a lot of additional tax deductible expenses. So the rule of thumb is that all of the costs related to the running of the property is tax deductible during ownership. All of the costs related to acquisition or disposal are tax deductible on exit when we pay our capital gains tax. Capital gains tax is a maximum rate of 24%. Again, a lot of tax deductible expenses. So it's very important that before you commit to investing in the UK, that you speak with a tax specialist, you understand what the implications are before you make any decisions. And then, of course, inheritance tax. It's a tax that everyone is scared of. It's considered quite high in the UK at 40%. What people don't know is that the first £325,000 worth of assets is tax-free upon death. They also only look at your net assets. So again, leveraging mortgages are very useful when it comes down to tax planning, because that's not considered, the loan of the bank is not considered as part of your assets. So investors takeaway. The UK remains one of the key locations for international property investors to deploy their funds. It's a very stable market. It's a very, compared to other markets, it's a very liquid market as well, whereas real estate is usually considered pretty illiquid. There are some destabilizing forces. However, in the long run, we don't see that as any showstoppers. So the UK property market is resilient, has been resilient, but the key is to surround yourself with a group of experts, people who really know what they're talking about, people who can advise you of finding the growth zones within the growth zones, people who can advise you on the tax structures, and who can be there along the way from start to finish. And that's it for me.
Well, excellent. Great job, Bianca. Yeah, well, you've almost nailed it down in 10 minutes. So congratulates with that.
I really try.
Yeah, great. I think it was very insightful, let's say, tackling tax issues, but also growth perspective. And when you look at growth, you touched on London, but what kind of secondary cities do you allocate as being investable?
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter where it is in the UK as long as you have your demand and supply imbalances. So Manchester has been named as a very popular city to invest in. I guess mainly because the price point is so much lower. It's a lot more entry level compared to London. But there's a lot being built in Manchester. So don't just go and buy in Manchester. What we want to do is find these growth zones within the growth zone. So where in Manchester is the best product that you can invest in. And that's key. It's location, location, location. Like our superstar Phil on the BBC also always talks about. But yeah, Manchester, Birmingham, Liverpool, Leeds, Leicester, Cambridge, they're all second tier cities with big supply and demand imbalances. But I guess something that I did forget to mention is that a lot of investors are focusing on yields. Yields
Mhm.
do not create wealth. Focusing on yields is a very, very short term view. Um, Having a high yield does not make you rich. You need to look at your capital appreciation. That is the key.
Mm.
That is what brings you wealth.
Excellent. Well, maybe we will have some extra questions in the big Q&A afterwards, but let's go now to Spain because I think from a portfolio diversification point of view, Dutch real estate investors are also allocating to Spain in a big way. And I'm very happy to have Constantijn on board with the Fair Home Investment Group. Well, actually, I have the same question on your side. Please give us a 10 minutes kickoff on Spain and especially your region where you are active in. And then I will ask some questions afterwards, as Constantine. So the floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Ron. First of all, like a really quick introduction about myself. I've been active in the real estate market for 3 years now. We have set up 3 companies so far. So the first one is just a regular brokerage office where we help people purchase investment properties, especially in the region of the northern Costa Blanca in Spain. The other company that we have is Costa Casa Investments. It's a new venture where we can help investors make the turn up to Spain on a lower, like with a lower get-in. You can get in like an indirect investment instead of to have to purchase the property by yourself. We do all the work and all the heavy lifting, and people just get in with lower tickets, and we can provide them with a solid investment percentage of the total value that we make. And the other one is Habitat One. It's a new venture that we have set up in the region. It's truly a collective of all the real estate companies that joining together with a lawyer, architects, real estate firms. So there's a lot of gray area in the real estate market in Spain, and we combine everything together now to make it way more transparent. And for people have one locat, one contact point where they can do everything that's regarding real estate at the moment. But let's first start understanding a little bit of Spain. I'm going to give a little bit of more wider, broader perspective about the Spanish real estate market. I think a lot of the things I'm going to tell that Bianca has already told also applies to the Spanish real estate market. There's a lot of similarities in between. I think the UK market is more adult, and the Spanish real estate market is going there now. So the first thing that the Spanish market is going through at the moment, it is really becoming an international playing field, especially because there was a golden visa program where people from other continents could get in with if they purchased for like 600 or 700K. There was a free visa in between, so they could travel free between Europe and the other continents. So we see a lot of capital from America and also China that's coming in now, but especially from the Northern European countries. There's truly like some sort of exodus going on. So it feels like that especially from the Northern European countries, because there's so much regulation in these countries, well, especially in the Netherlands at the moment. The profits are going down on real estate, and the sentiment is bad. And people just say, well, if I have to pay taxes, I'd rather do it in a good climate and sunny weather. So they're all moving to Spain at the moment, looking for a better lifestyle. So this is 2 articles that you probably see showing up like every other week in magazines, on the internet, whatsoever. The first one is in Dutch. Spain has become has again been named like one of the best countries to live in Europe. And the other one is Cashless de Costa, as we say it in Dutch. It primarily just says that there are so many Dutch people that are making a profit in Spain now at the moment. Because a lot of the things that we do in the Netherlands regarding real estate applies to the real estate market as well. So a lot of, especially real estate investors at this moment or entrepreneurs are setting up a shop now in Spain, because then can just make a lot more profit regarding the same service that they provide. I think a lot of the capital shift, especially regarding the Netherlands to Spain, has to do with, I think a lot of it has to do with the better climate and better quality of life. It's just a negative sentiment in the Dutch market at the moment. Political, on the real estate side, it's pretty bad. On the political side, it's pretty bad. Just people just want to do something new. They want to go to a country where they have a little bit of better climate. The environment has been better, lower cost of living. And also the profit that they can make on real estate is just better at the moment. And I think a lot of it has to do with the rise of remote working in better conditions. Also, I think Corona really helped push the market from the Northern European countries to Spain. It really helped push the market here and drive the investors to Spain at this moment. If we sum up like the things that really apply to us at the moment, is that I think the Spanish market at this moment is outperforming all the European countries. It's quite funny to see that, like, if you ask like an institutional investor or family offices or like more equity firms, if you would ask them like 5 years ago, would you invest in Spain? And they would all say no. It was all like code red, don't invest in Spain. But at this time now, we see so many institutional and family offices coming into the country There's so much demand going on. It's pretty much on everybody's radar. I speak like on a weekly basis to new entrepreneurs or new companies that are setting up shop here now, that are handing out bridge funding to Spanish real estate companies or investors. And you can also see that on the institutional capital side, that 65% of the transaction volume was through institutional capital. So there's a lot going on in Spain towards the logistics side, residential, and primarily also focused on senior living and healthcare. There's a really big demand in Spain at the moment, and I'll tell you some more in later. And also, I think that I really like about the Spanish country, what they're invested in. If you look towards the migration side in Europe, what is happening now, there's so many migrants coming in, and where Spain has said, well, we're not gonna catch up all these migrants. We're gonna invest in higher educated people. We're gonna allow these people to come in to boost also the economics, and also to get more expats in with a higher profile of income, but also with a higher profile of knowledge that can boost the country up and make it perform it on a lot better base. If you go to tourism, it's already passing the 100 million visitors forecast. So that's also it's crazy how much people coming into Spain. Also towards, like, if you focus on towards the residential market, there's so much demand now. So these are like some parameters that you have to take in advance. We primarily focus on the residential market as is for now with our investment firm, but these are also like macroeconomic facts that you have to take into consideration to see how Spain is like performing if you compare it to the rest of Europe. And the forecast is quite good. If you look at the saturation of the market, that's something that you have taken account, as Bianca has also said. It's supply and demand. So there's a lot of new build that's going on in Spain. It's just ridiculous if you see all the cranes that's coming up. So you have to look at these areas where there's so much new build that's going on. And also if you're more towards like investment side of like apartments or new build or off plan, you have to take a broader look towards all the regions that you can invest in. If you want to get in early, you have to pick the regions where they're not like building up fast now at the moment, because you have to get in up front. And you have to take in consideration, if you want to make like a rental income out of your property in certain regions, you have to check how much supply is already there. You really have to check that, because it looks so easy, but it's like promoting like Spain from, well, just buy a property, you could rent it out with 80% rental, like how do you say it? Like they're sitting on 80% turnover every year. That's just it's a lot harder than it seems. If you look towards the facts and numbers, towards like the European countries, this is a broader view of like what the tourism is doing at the moment. You can see during Corona that it really blew up afterwards. And you just can primarily see like the countries that are coming in. If you focus on our region, that's the Costa Blanca North. It's just ridiculous to see if you surpass here on the street, if you go to restaurants, you go to stores or whatsoever, you just hear everybody speaking Dutch at the moment. And the crazy thing is, if you look at this region, or perhaps the Estepona, the Costa del Sol, there's so many Dutch people that's coming in. It's like 5,500 a year. But also the amount of people that decide to stay here and live here and continue their life here. That's also something that really evolves. Primarily, people just had to buy properties just primarily for an investment or a second home. But if you see like towards the more development side, especially what we do, we start to develop more and more towards like the end consumer, people that truly want to live here and stay here. If you look towards like the changes that's coming up for especially investors, these are like the four things that you have to take into consideration. There's a lot of regulations that's coming into the Spanish real estate market now towards rental properties, touristic licenses that are being declined or are not longer given out, because a lot of hassle like toward local people. They have enough, for instance, there's like a building with eight apartments that local people live, and 2 are being rented out, and they're just saying, well, we want to get rid of all the tourists. You see regularly on the news. So they changed the law, they regulated a little bit more. So there are different in touristic license that you have to take into consideration. HOA permission is like the VVA, we call it in Dutch. If you want to rent out to like a rental properties, you have to at least have a 3-to-5 ratio or 60% up of the VVA or HOA. That's give you permission to use it for rental purposes. ESG, this is something that we use really. It's really turning out in our favor now. Like also in the Netherlands, we were already a little bit far ahead in the market. Spain is also catching up now. Before 2030, you have to at least have the certificate E on your property now, and you see a lot of Spanish people that don't have the money to do the sustainability changes to the house. They're just putting up the house on the market, and this is like the properties that you really want to buy in now as an investor to do the investment on your side. Plus Valia is for Plus Balia, if you say it here. It's a new tax they put on the ground, especially towards the bigger regions and cities. You're gonna put up a tax on the ground value at the moment. It's something you have to take into consideration if you make your calculations that these prices of these taxes are going up. If we take like a broader perspective towards like for institutionals or family offices or pension funds that are coming in Spain, these are like the 3 drivers that are really going to outperform the market. If you could look at senior living and healthcare, there's so much demand going on because all these new people that are coming into Spain, there was already like a big problem in Spain as it is now, but like all these North European expats that are coming in Spain, they're want to stay and live here like the rest of their lives. But all these people are going to be added up towards the demand on senior living. I think there in Spain it's like a 90 to 22 in between something rise before 2030. So you see a lot of bigger investment agencies that are scaling up towards this asset class. Logistics is really pumping up as well. There's a lot of growth in logistics because there's a lot of law and economic growth that really helps like e-commerce stores and whatsoever to set up shop here in Spain. So that really helps out, especially towards on the outer skirts of the bigger cities. And social affordable housing. I think that's applies to pretty much every country whatsoever, especially in the bigger countries. But this is also like a really, really big demand on an asset class that we are looking into now at the moment. Well, it's not really prioritized to also show a little bit of showcase what we're doing now. This is Habitat 1 to close it all down. That you have like a broader introduction of what we're doing here. We have like a one collective of every aspect of the ecosystem in Spain that's combining now, from search to purchase to manage and maintenance. And I'll share a little bit more towards the future. For now, it's pretty much irrelevant. So that's pretty much it.
Great. Thanks very much, Constantijn.
Thanks.
And also, especially, I was triggered by your regulatory update and also with your data on the market snapshot that I think it's much broader than the second home conversation. And it really touched me also because, of course, senior living and healthcare real estate is becoming a big market in Spain. What's your take on when you also bring that into connection with, for example, heat stress in Spain? Because I think older adults are also searching for, on one hand, a nice climate, but also heat stress can also impact their lives in a more negative way. What's your take on that one?
That's a good question. That's a good question, Ron. I really don't have like a detailed answer to that one. Would we like the heat stake towards their health life? No, no.
Well, maybe we could do some research on that with our societeit, because I think it would be useful to maybe organize a road trip, but also to do a deep dive about how we create resilient cities for all those older adults. Because I think on one hand it's about longevity, but it's also about let's say accessibility, livability, and also with, let's say, heat stress in place. I think that's an important topic to tackle.
No, definitely. I haven't heard it, to be honest, before, but it's definitely a topic I would dive more into the senior living side of it. It's definitely something that we have to take into consideration then.
Maybe Constantijn, what we see a lot, let's say, from the Dubai side is that, and maybe you have the same with Spain, is that when the elderly are going to, let's say, Dubai for, let's say, their retirement, they're only there for winters. And in the summers they spend with the families back in the Netherlands. Because in the end, Spain to the Netherlands, like 2.5 hours. So maybe that's something also, Ron, for you then to look into, like, okay, how this let's say the season work for those those kind of real estate sectors.
No, it's similar. It's similar now because we still have to take because the pension is probably, if you speak like the Dutch people, it's coming from the Netherlands. So we still have this rule of 183 days. So they move back in between, and they probably stay in the summer. They go back to the Netherlands. It's similar here.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting topic. They also call it senior expats. So it's indeed an interesting one. And it's a nice bridge to you, Jan-Willem, because I think Dubai is, let's say, it's high on the priority list of our Dutch investors. And I would like to frame you also like a serial entrepreneur, because you're running your FCD Dubai company with your business partner, Tilman Klos. Dubai, I would call it a booming market, but I'm really curious about to get some data and also to have a in-depth conversation about, let's say, the existing stock and also the off-plan market. So please share your thoughts in a 10 minutes introductory.
So when we look to Dubai, and I think all the advertisements that everybody sees online is that everybody can invest in an off-plan property. And an off-plan property is very simple. Most of the time, you enter with a lower price. You have more potential for capital returns, especially because if we look towards the past of Dubai, the quality that was there and the buildings that are currently on the market, they don't offer the best amenities, the best quality, are getting old quite fast. And recently there have been changes in the quality that's been handed over. You have the payment plan. So a lot of people, when they buy a property in Dubai, they don't have the money up front directly. They may want to pay in cash because they want to use the positive cash flow to whatever they want to use it for. And it's more, let's say, long-term investment. So we see a lot of, let's say, 25 to 40-year-olds who invest in the off-plan market and who can wait sometimes even for properties to hand over towards 2029 and 2030. The one disadvantage from buying off-plan is that you will have some years where there is no cash flow. Luckily, there are some developers who can build relatively fast, let's say within a year, 1.5 years, because their sales strategy is always a little bit different. But once it's ready, if you look, let's say, direct cash flow in comparison with the Netherlands, we always aim in Dubai for minimum 6 to 6.5% net. So that's after service charges. And then, of course, you have your capital growth, which depends on the location. And then for the ready properties, the best part is you have immediate returns. I always say is that buying or living in an apartment complex in Dubai is like living in a hotel. With a big pool most of the time, a gym, a sauna, everything is there. We even see some buildings now with golf simulators and bowling alleys. So great to have your kids party there. The buildings always come with security. And what we see a lot is that because Dutch investors, we don't know it in the Netherlands, that we have so many amenities. So what we see is that even though some of the amenities will never be used by the residents, a lot of investors still want to have them. So let's say even the bowling alley. A lot of residents will never use it, but some see it as very important. And with that also, the more amenities you have, the more service charges you have. And most of the time, the amenities also link up with the rental amount that you can get. So to buy off plan, it's relatively easy. You can do it from abroad as well, and that's what makes this market quite accessible. As you buy from the developer, who will give you a sales purchase agreement, and then will register your apartment with the Dubai Land Department, and you will get an OCOOT. Maybe going back towards the off-plan, what an OCOOT is. The OCOOT is your preliminary title deed, and that's been brought to life after, let's say, the 2008 financial crisis, where a lot of developers saw the boom in the market, let's say what we have right now. But of course, we got the financial crisis, and the market collapsed, where a lot of projects were halted. That's all been safeguarded now. So an off plan, if you buy, your money will go towards an escrow. It's safe. You don't need to worry about it, and everything is managed by the Dubai government. You get your payment plan. So yeah, you can pay in installments. Some even offer 1% payment plans. It's not sometimes the best option, because nowadays what a lot of developers do is that if they offer, let's say 1%, they charge more for flexibility. So we always look for the best developer that offer flexible payment plans, but also offer a market rate for their properties. And with certain developers also from the past that we have very good contacts. Of course, these are the smaller developers, because you also have the government developers. They're quite tough to negotiate with, because they know how strong their product is. But they're great deals to still on the market. And then the off-plan cost, and I always compare, let's say, with the Netherlands. Of course, from 2026 onwards, the property transfer fee will only go towards 8%, but now it's 10.4%. In Dubai, if you want to buy a property, doesn't matter if it's for own use or for an investment, your property transfer fee is 4%. So that's relatively low and can be earned back within the first year of your cash flow. Further, you have some administration fees that depends between 300 and 1250 euros per transaction. That depends on the developer and how much they want to put in themselves. The problem is what we see with Dubai, or what we saw with Dubai, I have to say technically, is that Dubai was grey-listed or blacklisted for the financial markets. So sometimes it was quite difficult to get money from point A to point D, to point Dubai. So what we did, and that's one of the reasons I'm currently in Europe as well, is that I had a meeting with one of our partners who help you to, let's say, transfer money from, let's say, the Netherlands or the Euro account towards the Dirham account. And they offer much better rates than the bank, and then don't give the headache of the bank. So in that way, because the bank, because you pay in Dirham, you can save costs as well. And then, let's say, what we see a lot during the construction phase is that people try to flip a unit, and they can also leverage that via the payment plan that they have. That's very specific now. The market is not as it was 3-4 years ago, where there was a big opportunity. But now you have to be very selective and careful with the projects that you see. Because if you look towards off-plan cost, it can cost you a lot of money if you deal with the wrong developer or the wrong broker who will say we can flip it within 1 year. And then, yeah, your costs will rise purely because you have to probably have to sell it with a loss. And then for ready properties is relatively fast and easy. Through the social tide last year, we managed to do a transaction in Amsterdam with one of your members. And we were super surprised when, because we had the buyer from Dubai, and we went to do the transaction in the Netherlands. The money was available. We saw the apartment. They did the offer accepted. And after the offer accepted, it still took 2 months for everything went through. So Dubai is a little bit different. So if you have an apartment or a villa and you have it for sale, and let's say all the service charges are paid, there are no, let's say, you're not behind on payments with your mortgage, I can create a contract today, and within 2 days we can go to the trustee office and transfer the property. So it's a very efficient market. You don't have to wait. You can immediately start generating cash flow the moment you buy buy a ready property. The one thing that we see right now, and that's a regulation change, which is not in the presentation yet, is that nowadays, if you want to sell in Dubai, you need to have a bank account in Dubai. And that's for a lot of investors, a very important topic to address. And that's partly because, yeah, I just mentioned Dubai was gray or blacklisted. Because of AML, they now want that the money which comes from the sale of the property goes directly towards the owner. We have ways to go around it, but it's a very important update to keep in mind if you want to buy in Dubai, that it's very important to have a bank account, or that your broker or your contacts in Dubai know a party that can generate, let's say, an escrow account in your name, so you can sell it. So the best part is also here your additional costs are quite low. So that means that you have your 4% again with a small administration fee, and a registration fee, which is approximately 4,200 dirham. So let's say €1,000. And it depends if you want to have a mortgage or not. You get a small, let's say, registration amount of 0.25% of the mortgage amount. And further after handover, what you have to look for is the service charges. And you have your DWA and housing fee. So your DWA is your Dubai Electricity and Water Authority. So that will cover your water and electricity expenses. And you also have Empower. So that's most of the time for your air conditioning and your chilled water. And your housing fee is just a very small percentage of the housing, of the property value, or it's a part of the rental value. So the moment you own a property in Dubai and you have it for rent on the long-term basis, your tenant pays your property tax. So in that way, you lower your costs. It's a very cost-efficient way of owning property in Dubai. And that's why also a lot of Dutch people, because I think everybody talks about it here, get done with the regulations, overpaying, taxes, all these kind of things. And in Dubai, they managed to do it in a way that it's beneficial for the landlords. As already mentioned, the yearly cost after handover, you have to pay the service charges. So I have some clients, they own multiple properties in the Netherlands, and one of those properties is in an apartment complex where they have an elevator. And purely because of that, they have to pay 250 euros per month just to, let's say, pay for the cleaning and the elevator. Beginning of the year, they bought a property with me. They're paying 200 euro a month in service charges, and they get pools, pedal courts, gyms, spas, running tracks. So it's a very different market. You get so much more value for your money when you compare it with the Netherlands. And furthermore, the service charges are just for the maintenance of the common areas, the cleaning of the building, the salaries of the building staff, because of course you have the security, you have the lifeguards, you have the window cleaners once every 3 months, which Dubai is in the desert. It's quite useful to have them. And the landscaping, and just to keep the property in good condition. And all the costs are shared equally, let's say, among the owners. So there is a price per square foot. So the bigger the apartment, of course, the more service charges you pay. So again, it's a very cost efficient way of owning property. One question that we get a lot nowadays is, can we finance from the Netherlands? Yes, that's possible if you're not a resident, and you don't need the golden visa for it to mortgage a property. There is one thing that's very important to know. They look towards, let's say, a certain salary bracket. So if you're not in there, it might be difficult to get it. So that's why if you want to get, let's say, financing, we always try to get the client in contact with one of our mortgage advisors. So from the moment we know already, okay, if it gets handed over and the situation stays the same, the property can be mortgaged with the amount that have been given. The difference between, let's say, a mortgage in the Netherlands and Dubai is that the moment if you have a mortgage in the Netherlands, or you put an additional mortgage on your house, you get the money in your bank account. If you have a property in Dubai and you want to, let's say, refinance it, that is possible, but only if that money goes directly towards another property that you already own in Dubai. So in that way, the government makes sure that, let's say, the bank's money will not leave the country, but stays in, let's say, the real estate market, which in my eyes is really clever. But I am very happy that in the Netherlands they do it differently, because that keeps my business going as well. So in this way, there are a lot of different ways how to invest in the Dubai market. What are the differences? The financing options, but also the visa regulation. They change all the time, so it's very important to keep up to date with everything that's going on, because it's still a very, very, very fast-paced market, and it is really fun. You can make a lot of money in this market, but what I say right now is that if you bought 4 years ago, you would have made money, no matter what you bought. Today is a different market. There are different developers in the market who don't offer the quality. They don't offer the stability of handing over on time. So if you want to buy in Dubai, I would agree with you, but do it the smart way. Look towards, let's say, also brokers that are honest with you, or developers that have a track record, or are part of a holding company that have a track record. Because it's not the same market anymore. Yes, it's great. You can still make a lot of money, but again, be careful. And that was my presentation.
Excellent. Thanks, Jan-Willem. It was very useful, I think, also to get an update, because like you're mentioning yourself, I think when we did the first podcast together, this is a different story, but I think in the end it's all about being an expert, and having thought leadership about a country. Actually, I have one small question from you for you too. When you look at the extraordinary growth, especially on the resi side, what's actually the impact on the commercial real estate side? Because I assume when for every 2-3 residents we need also an office space. So what's the general take on the growth in the commercial real estate sector?
So recently we spoke with a commercial broker, and she mentioned to us that per 500 houses in Dubai, there's one office. So indeed, what you say as well, there is a massive shortage in offices in Dubai. So nowadays we see a lot of developers jumping onto the commercial market. We just had 2 towers being launched by Omniat in Business Bay. Bianca, I think you know this as well. Ellington launched a commercial building in Meydan Horizon, which was sold out before it got even launched, purely because the demand for commercial real estate is really high.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, we are very lucky to travel to Dubai with a group of Societeit members end of this month. So really looking forward to catch up with you guys and also to do a briefing at the Lolo house with some other members. So thanks for your insightful presentation. And I think we're now also speeding up to the tourism drivers, and therefore I'm very pleased to have Rob Wijnen on board. Rob, welcome again.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, so it was a resi conversation, but we also saw growth, let's say, on the logistics side or senior living and even in commercial real estate in Dubai. But now I would like to talk about the Caribbean and especially in particular the Aruba island. I think it's really maybe the first time we're tackling this item in real estate. So maybe it's a novelty in this perspective. So I'll also would like to ask you to give a 10 minutes introductory on this topic. I will share the slide for you, and then I'm very happy to ask some questions about some more details.
Sounds great. And actually, I'm the closest one to the Netherlands, although the distance seems to be larger, but we are part of the Dutch kingdom. And that's something Spain, Dubai can't say it by themselves.
Yeah, therefore, great. So please, you can see the screen and you can now touch on the ABC Islands in general and Aruba in particular.
Yeah. Yeah, what I was saying, it's a complete other market, but it's quite familiar to the Dutch market. While our laws are based on the Dutch laws since 2010, Aruba is an independent country, the same as Curacao and the same as Sint Maarten, but they are still part of the Dutch kingdom. And due to this connection with the Dutch kingdom, in the end, the High Court, the Hoge Raad in the Netherlands, is the end of the legal discussions, and yeah, they use the Dutch law in the end for all disputes. Meaning that if you buy property in Aruba, if you develop property in Aruba, if you rent property, it all comes back to the Dutch law. So it's quite familiar for people to travel from the Netherlands to the Caribbean islands and to invest in those islands, knowing that it's just a garden outside of the European side. If you look at this picture, you see Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire. We're located just in front of Venezuela. On clear day, we can see Venezuela from the island. It's about 20 kilometers far from us. One disadvantage is that Mr. Trump also discovered Venezuela, and I don't know what's he planning to do, but in the meantime, he shot 7 boats down already with the dying of 27 people, saying they're drug dealers. Nobody knows because nobody has seen those boats. They only see the wrecks of it. Yeah, that makes a little bit instability, but in the end, the island of Aruba especially is filled with American tourists. About 80% of the tourists who are coming to Aruba are coming from the US. That's a little bit different if you compare it to Curacao or Bonaire. Bonaire is mainly Dutch people. Curacao was a lot of Dutch people, is more focused on Europe, and now is trying to get more and more American tourists to the island. If you look at this, the figures as well, then you see that Aruba is by far the smallest island, but we have about 120,000 residents, and that's a little bit comparable with Curacao. Bonaire, nice. A lot of Dutch people invest in Bonaire, but it's a small village, and within 2 weeks you're part of the village and everybody knows you, and after 3 weeks they're looking for somebody new because they know you already quite well. And if you look to the next slide, we see the way Aruba is located, constructed. You see, we don't call it north, but if you look at this picture, you see the north side. That's the rough side of the island. That's the nature side of the island. That's where the Caribbean Sea is bumping into the island. And if we look at the south side, and especially on the part of the island, that's called in Aruba the north part. It's the high rise and the low rise. That's where all the tourists are located in the hotels. And what we have seen in the recent years is that a lot of investors buy the private property around it, and they buy it to fill it up with Airbnb rentals. And yeah, they take a lot of beds needed for all the tourists on the island, and they are located in this north part. If we look at the south side, you see Oranjestad. That's the main capital city. That's where also the cruise lines are boarding, and that's especially Oranjestad is an area that's in development. In the past, the hotels went to the high rise, what I mentioned on the north part, and the Oranjestad went empty. Nowadays, people see, yeah, but this is a historical center. The cruise boat lines are coming there. Tourists will come there to visit, to do the sightseeing. So also for investors, there's a lot to do. In Oranjestad, later on, you will see also the latest news lines, the headlines, and they're focusing the hit. Or one step back, please. The hidden pearl is on the east side. It's called San Nicolas. That's where the old refinery was located, and that's a part of the island that's can have so much more development. It's the oldest part of the island where the Shell complexes were located, where the Shell houses now uh, protected as monuments are located. But it's difficult for the tourists to discover nowadays because you have to make a long trip, and a long trip on our island is 20 minutes. But to discover more of it, if you look at developments, there are so many chances on San Nicolas. They recently finished the first big hotel on Baby Beach, and what we will expect is more developments to get established over there. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. If we look at Aruba, not only to the tourist line, what we see from the Aruba investment agents is that we have more. We also quite well in the industrial development now and in past, and especially at this moment with the aloe vera oil. Yeah, and we have the old refinery where they're still doing some work, but we're looking more and more for the economic growth in the niche of tourism, the agriculture, the logistics, and then especially focused on the island. Some are in the free zone and go off the island, but the island is growing, so you need all the things to be important. The circular economy, back to the heat stress, as you mentioned before in Spain. Yeah, the biggest solution for heat stress is green. Get plants, get trees. They need water, and I think that's the same for Spain and Dubai. In the end, also in Aruba, there's coming down a lot of rain, but it's only in a few moments. So you have to box this rain. You have to make the storage for it, and then use it during the year. And that's something just starting. There are massive possibilities in it. Go to the next slide. What we see, another thing of the island, we have quite well medical care system on the island. But there is so much more to develop, especially while we're in competition with Colombia and Panama with the help. But most Americans don't like to go to those countries because they're not so stable. And one of the opportunities at this moment is the medical tourism, to get them to the island and to give people the time to rest, to relax, and to heal again. That's also a driver for the developments on the island. If you go back to the figures a little bit, then what you see is no, stay on the slide. Sorry. We have 150,000 residents, and almost 50% of these people are working in the tourist industry, if it's not more, because those are the official figures. And we have an immigrant problem in Europe, but we have the same from Venezuela, because not all the people like the program of Maduro. The stay over 2 billion, the passengers coming in the island, so not cruise passengers, 2.5 million. Not comparable with the Spanish figures, but I think Spanish on tourism is the top of the world. But promising figures, you can use it on all kinds. So if you want to go to the next slide. If it works, yes. Yeah, most news also is in Dutch and English. I pitched some small news items. What you see is the comparison with Bonaire, that we are on the same level as Bonaire, with the safety, with the return on investment, but we have more chance because we have a bigger society. We have a bigger island where you can build. Bonaire in size is bigger, but a lot of it, the island is protected as nature. If we look at the facts, we're number one as best beach in the Caribbean. We're number one as happy island. Aruba is one happy island, and on the happiness index we're number one. If you look at the San Nicolas area, which you mentioned before, over there is a lot of street art going on. There's a lot of creativity going on. So there are a lot of chances over there. And go to the next slide. I will speed up a little bit as well. Based on the American Travel Index, again, Aruba scored place number one in Caribbean, and you see it on the left side, but probably we can share all the presentations, and then you can go through it by yourself. The outlook for the coming years is also growth in Aruba, but Aruba is a different country than Dubai or the UK. You have to do more investigation by yourself, while yeah, it's a small market. If you go to the next slide, please. There's some figure for the calculators under us. Nice information to have some figures available. The next slide is more important in my opinion. If we look back to Aruba, it's a narrow market with a narrow area of expertise. So if you bring your own investors' expertise, it's quite easy to have a good score and to have a big success. It's a small market. We actually, I think there's one of the real estate agents in the house today as well, but there aren't official commercial real estate agents working on the market. They don't see difference between office area and commercial area, and there's so much to investigate, so much to develop. But you have to do a lot by yourself. The transaction data is a lack. We don't have the systems like we're used to with the CBREs of this world that have all the data available because they're not located on the islands. But it's a people's business. So as soon as you're here and you get people to know, you will see that it's quite easy to find your chances, and you will easily can get into success on the island. On the next slide, what you see is that also the government is trying to give the island an extra boost. What I said in Oranjestad, and they started with an area development project in the city of Oranjestad, with Main Street, Calle Grande, to start being renovated, opening new restaurants, shops, and get tourists going to these areas. We look at other chances on the next slide. What we see is the port area called Barcadera, where a lot of business units are created, or the land is available to be created. We're looking for investors for it. Port City is one of the main developments on the old cruise terminal, and you still will have the cruises in front of your development. It's about 180,000 square meters of area development where the government don't know how to act and what to do, but it's there. On the San Nicolas area, we've got Rogers Beach, where they found out that with the closed refinery, this is one of the pearls of the island, and that's almost the same with San Nicolas. Looking at the time, I think it's good to end up my presentation over here, but what can I say comparing to the other regions? Aruba ask a little bit more attention for the investor, but give so much back, and I think the term one happy island is really true for it.
Excellent. Thanks, Ross. I think it was very interesting because in terms of diversification, it's lovely to see that also a non-mature market like the ABC Islands has a lot of potential and also growth. When you look at also capital flow interest, what kind of capital is also looking into this region? Is it, let's say, US capital or Asian capital or even domestic capital?
Local capital, there are a few bigger players on it, and most of it is international capital, most of the time from the United States and Canada, but knowing that about 80% of the tourists are coming from the US and Canada, they are used to go to the Hilton, the Hyatts, the Ritz-Carlton, and behind these big companies, most of the time is international capital as well, and it's due to the lack of data. It's always very difficult to understand whether it's the brand is coming on its own or the brand is brought in by the international investor who is working already with this brand. And to give you a nice example, about a year ago, the Hyatt Hotel was bought by a group of Jewish investors, and it was based on the fact that they were not able to visit the hotel in a period of about 10 days. Then all the major Jewish population around New York is coming to the island, but the staff in the hotel didn't like them to come all together, and in the end they said, well, then we buy the hotel. Again, American capital, is it based on the island itself? No, they were familiar with the island, but they paid a price that was higher than the market just to have the spot and to secure it. And now, of course, they're redeveloping parts of the hotel, but the way they bought it was more emotional than I think they made a bit.
Then data driven. Yeah, great. Now, I think that was also one great takeaway in general, because I think our members are always searching for the right data to make the right decision. And I think all of you underlined how important it is to have local knowledge, to know your region, to know the legal system, to know actually the details of the data. And that's really also what you will also need at the ABC Island to go from a, let's say, emerging market to become a mature market. And of course, sizes are different. However, the drivers of tourism are very strong, and I think you really pointed it out. So thanks very much, Rob. Yeah, time is flying. And indeed, I triggered you to maximize it in only 10 minutes. But yeah, I saw some questions are coming in, but also our founder, Claudia, is on board of this webinar. So I don't want to surprise you, Claudia, but maybe let's start with you because I think we had a great international comparison from the UK to Spain to Dubai to the ABC Islands and Aruba in particular. But maybe you have a question for this bunch of experts.
Well, not particularly a question, but I really can't wait to visit all these places to see it by myself. I was really surprised by the great interest this is possible in the UK. So thanks for that, Bianca. I think that's something we need more. We give more attention to because that's actually at most nearby for us. So yeah, I think it's a great thing to show some affection to that as well in the nearby future. We're going to visit Spain at the end of the month, where you're flying to Dubai. And I'm really longing to bring our members there to show them in person what are the possibilities in Spain, because I think Constantijn did a great job by telling it. But as he was pointing out, everybody is speaking Dutch. He told me lately there's really a Dutch hospital now with Dutch doctors for all the Dutch citizens who are going to live there. And I think the same is happening in Dubai. We read it all the time in the press that Dutch investors are really longing and needing new possibilities and new investments. And they're all going to Spain and Dubai. So I was really happy that today we could provide them with news about the UK, but also about the ABC Islands. So yeah, I think, and you did a great job, Ron, as usual, because I was really pointed out by all this information. Yeah,
No, it was great.
it was really worth. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's of course one of the objectives of our international part of the Sociëteit. In the Netherlands, we are actually you've created a leading Dutch real estate Sociëteit with over 1,000 C-level executives. However, I think let's say from an international point of view and also diversification point of view, our members are searching for investment volumes, yields, but also let's say how they can make a lasting impact, whether it's on ESG or the second home conversation. So I think it was very insightful, and we have a lot of requests also to get data on Bali, for example, or I think Singapore, where also Bianca is normally based. Also, Asian capital is searching for the right match. And I do believe that Dutch entrepreneurs, especially in real estate, are trustful people, knowledgeable, and they are also the right business partners to collaborate. And that's also the reason why we've recorded this webinar in English to also connect with our international peers, because I think Dutch real estate parties are very respected in that perspective. Maybe one tiny question from my side to Bianca, because you're based in Singapore and also dealing with Asian capital. When you also, if you listen to your peers in Spain, Dubai, and the ABC Islands, what was your general takeaway from your colleagues?
Yeah, what I thought was quite interesting is that I think the ABC Islands and Spain both have an element of, I think, self-use, and it might be a slightly more emotional investment. Listening to what the guy said, people are migrating there. They want the nice life. They want the happy life in ABC. They want the sunshine in Spain. Whereas I think Dubai and the UK is purely investment, just about the numbers. And seeing sort of the different motivation based on location was for me really interesting to see.
Let's check that with you, Jan-Willem, because do you agree that when it's about economics, that Dubai, that's the main driver, or do you also see, let's say, population growth where people are migrating to Dubai in terms of living over there, having workations in Dubai? So, what's your take on that one?
I find that this question is asked at the right time. Because what we see right now, but because I've been in Dubai for almost 3 years now, is that the first 2.5 years were mostly investors, mostly from the Netherlands. They're exploring, especially because the point system got introduced in the Netherlands. And what we see right now, especially let's say the last 6 months, are a lot of requests from end users who are willing to move either with the family, but also a lot of, let's say, um, that people want to enjoy their pensions in Dubai purely because they've worked hard their whole life. They have a nice watch, they have a nice car. But the moment that they are, let's say, in the UK or in the Netherlands, where my clients are coming from, they say, I cannot enjoy it there. So they bring the cars over now to Dubai and then they enjoy their retirement with their cars in the sun, in the winter, in the UAE. And UAE, because I say UAE because all the Emirates are now booming now. So the market is changing in a good way, because I don't think it's very healthy that you only have investors buying into, let's say, a market. So the moment that we get now more requests from end users shows that also the investors who got in early made the right choice as, yeah, people are moving.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree that also requires, let's say, strategic planning, creating resilient cities, and also have a long-term plan on Dubai, and not like, let's say, a short-term fix in yield. And I think also Bianca pointed that out. Maybe one question to you, Constantine, because when it's about emotions and when it's about the difference between a build-to-rent market, but also an end-user market, what's actually your company approach on when you're also dealing with people who are also, let's say, that they want to live over there? Is it a different way of doing deals and having real estate? Hey, you're almost towards the 360 approach in your business, but how are you dealing with this end user clients in Spain?
Well, if we compare the investment side to the end user wants a lot of more service that involved towards the investment. They want help with immigration, they want help in details, paperwork, getting the car in, whatsoever. So that's the thing. Like the after sales is way more important towards these types of clients, because they're always here. So it is always busy with the property as well, and also the property as is. There's a lot more demand. There are a lot more things that they want because they buy it from themselves instead of an investment. Is a totally different approach, and also we set up different people towards different types of clients. Some is more located towards creating a turnover sheets, and we have a lot of people that are buying from us and just say, well, just purchase it, put good property management on it, because I will never visit it anyway. So yeah, all these type of different people's investors. We have primarily on the investment side. I think we've two types of investors. The one of them is like primarily investment, and they don't really care where it is located. They just care about how's the turnover going, is the property taken care of, and that's pretty much it. And they have like a new extra address where they can go to or whatsoever. And the other one is like they use it for like 20-30% of the time that they can visit Spain as like a holiday home, and then they can get a little bit more investment out of it, that it pays up for the investment on the mortgage side.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I think that really underlines.
So that's I just also agree with Bianca that I think that Spain is emotional factor is a really big factor in buying something in Spain.
Yeah, but I think also perfectly underlined by Rob in this presentation that real estate is really a people's business. And indeed, I think that's maybe also something we need to work on from a, let's say, image point of view. That, of course, I would say every business should have a positive business case, otherwise, it's not viable. But also real estate. But in the end, it's all about people, whether it's the end user, whether it's a real estate professional who adds value to the proposition, or and I think that's also why Societeit is such a powerful network and ecosystem almost. Maybe one final word from your side, Rob, because when it's about people's business and you're not only because of the color of your hair, but you're an experienced real estate person. What's your final word? Also, when you listen to your colleagues, what's actually the added value of a Dutch real estate profession on the globe, to your opinion?
My opinion, real estate in the end is on my micro niveau. I like real estate after all these years because you can create whatever you want with real estate, but look for the right position on the right spot. If you put a farm in the middle of the Dam Square in Amsterdam, it doesn't work out. You won't get return on investment in your farmer business and you won't get the farm running over there. But if you put an apartment building on the farmland in the east part of the Netherlands, it won't work as well. And that's on the whole globe. There are so much opportunities, but you have to dive into it or put your money in an investment fund where you have the idea and the hope that it work out, and with good professionals, most of the time it works out. But then it's that's the same as going to the stock market. If you don't know the business where you're investing in, most of the time it's a little bit more of gamble than a real solid investment structure. So, but with real estate, especially, if you like it, and most of the people who are listening to us like real estate, in my opinion, then go into the object itself, explore your market. What do you like? Are you into retail? Are you into residential? Are you into logistic? What spots? What risk is affordable for your side? And what return on investment? And it can be in a yield, but it also can be the rise of the value of the property.
Great. Well, I think that's a perfect bridge builder to my closing remarks, Rob, because I fully agree that real estate is in the end a business where it needs expertise, where it's a people's business, but also it needs data, it needs underwriting of a geography. Therefore, I would like to thank you for your thoughtful, let's say, presentations. I think it was a great Kickstarter. I think it also requires a follow-up because I think every geography needs attention, whether it's UK, the ABC Islands, Spain, or Dubai. It's great to have transparency in the sector and also to work in our value chain on collaboration, to share data, and also to inspire people. So I would like to thank you to share your thoughts. I would also like to thank the audience for listening. And if you're listening this on demand, let's catch up next time with the Societeit Vastgoed International. Looking forward to our next webinar. Thank you very much.